Good morning, everyone. According to a recent study by the Public Religion Research Institute, the percentage of Americans who describe themselves as religiously unaffiliated, meaning they don't affiliate with any organized religious institution, is 27%. Ex-Catholics make up a rather disproportionate percentage of that share, and that number rises year by year. People were asked the reasons why they left the Catholic Church. Lots of reasons were given. Some of them were good reasons. Others are not very good reasons to leave the church. But the most common reason, 69% of ex-Catholics left the church because, quote, I stopped believing in the teachings of my religion. I stopped believing what the church taught. Meaning I knew what the church taught. I was taught it. I knew the head knowledge, but I didn't agree with it anymore. Either because my worldview changed, or maybe I started living a lifestyle that was at odds with what the church taught, or maybe I saw other Catholics not practicing what they preached. But if most ex-Catholics disagreed with the teachings of the church, it meant that they knew them at one point. They knew it. It was up here. After all, the church has been very good at transmitting information, data, head knowledge. Most of us who still go to church on a regular basis would probably agree with this. How many of you, by show of hands, were taught everything you needed to know growing up about the church? You were taught all your catechism facts. You knew what you needed to believe. Now, were you taught the why behind what you believed? What happened if you asked your parents or you asked your teachers or even your priests, why do we believe that? Most of you probably got a resounding shh. Don't ask questions. Just believe it. Catholics have always been good at knowing the what, but not the why. Today we're joined by our OCIA candidates. There's a handful of you who have been preparing to become fully Catholic. These are our brothers and sisters who were already baptized in some other Christian tradition, but wish to become fully Catholic. And so this afternoon, they'll be celebrating the rite of call with Bishop McClory. Since we're looking at lots of Catholics who have left the church, ideally these people who want to enter the church are absorbing not just the what of what we think or what we believe, not just the head knowledge, but the why. Where does it touch me in the heart? Why do we believe what we believe? That's the underlying story behind our faith. We'll get back to that a little bit later. Today we're celebrating the Feast of Christ the King. This is the last Sunday of the church year. Believe it or not, Advent starts next Sunday. So today we culminate the church year by looking at Christ who is coming for judgment. He is the King. He culminates all of human history by separating the sheep from the goats. What we're celebrating today, though, is a king who has not been sitting up on his lofty throne this whole time, just anxiously awaiting for the opportunity to throw down thunderbolts at you and me. No, today what we're celebrating is a king who has shown his solidarity with the least of his brothers and sisters. Christ knows what it's like to be hungry and thirsty, to be homeless, to be unclothed, to be sick, to be imprisoned. He knows what it's like to be spat upon, insulted, mocked, whipped, and ultimately crushed on that cross for my sins and yours. And he has sovereignly climbed down from the highest place that he could be, in God's throne, and has come down to the lowest and most shameful human situations that we can experience. This king in the story knows what it's like to suffer these things. And so when you and I are confronted with ministering to our brothers and sisters in need, the hungry, the thirsty, the homeless, the unclothed, the sick, and the imprisoned, not just those, but anyone else around us who is in distress, anyone who needs to be guided closer to the Lord, we're challenged with a sobering reality. In the most miserable of our fellow men and women, we have already met our judge. In the most miserable of our brothers and sisters, we have already had an encounter with our judge. The shepherd says, when you reached out or when you did not reach out to those in need, then you did that for me or you did not do that for me. Today is all about the culmination of our life, that future day when all of us will be brought before that judgment seat of Christ to give an account of our own life. And it brings us back to the question, why? Why are we here? Why do we do good things anyway? Why do we look at that man up on the cross and call him our king? Why is Jesus our king and not simply our life coach or a consultant? There has to be a deeper meaning behind what we believe, because as you look at generations of Catholics who have gone through the sacramental factory line of baptism, getting put through faith formation, getting married, and then all of a sudden disappearing, you have to ask the question, is there a deeper story behind this that we're just not getting, that we're not handing on to our kids? So many Catholics have been brought up with the rules and regulations, including you and me. But that's the only thing that they remember about the faith, unfortunately. That's why they leave. But there's more faith, there is more to our faith than that. And it's very basic. We haven't been taught what is most basic. If something is basic, it's your foundation. It's the base. So when you need to know something that's basic, it's the base upon which you build. Anyone here a builder or a carpenter? In order to build something, you have to have a strong base in order for that structure not to collapse. So if you don't have a strong base upon which to build your faith, if you don't know the story of why God has come to rescue you and me, then it doesn't matter how many rules and regulations you follow, how much morality that you subscribe to, or any of the good things that you do in your life. All those things that are supposed to be at the top of the building, if you don't have a strong faith, the why, to hold that up, then you're left with a building that's going to crumble. And so is it any wonder why the faith of millions of ex-Catholics has so easily crumbled for lack of knowing the story? Is it any wonder why millions of Americans have been driven to despair and hopelessness? Is it any wonder that as religious disaffiliation skyrockets, that the opioid addiction and mental health crisis among our younger generation also skyrockets? When you and I do not have a basic foundation, when we don't have a solid understanding of what God has done for us, and when we don't know the why of our faith, that's when things start to crumble. So for these next few weeks, we're going to get back to the basics. Believe it or not, we're only 29 days away from Christmas, if you haven't already noticed from your drive-in with the snowfall. The point of Advent is to prepare our hearts for this coming King. Today, we celebrate the culmination of human history with that King coming back to judge, but next Sunday we go back to the beginning of the church year to look forward to this baby King who is coming in to this world and is the same King to which your heart and my heart is drawn. What if we arrived at Christmas different this year than we did in the past? What if we approached Christmas with a basic understanding of the why, the story behind our faith? That's why for this Advent, these next 4 Sundays, Father Bill and I are initiating a homily series entitled Back to the Basics. We're diving into the story of our faith, the why. To reclaim the story, to know and to show that there's a different narrative out there that's different from the narrative you and I absorb from our culture all the time. This depressing, very negative narrative. There's a different narrative, and it's one that involves Jesus and what this King has done for you and me. And so this homily series boils down to 4 words. So week 1, next week, the word is created. Everything God created is good. You and I are the highlight of God's creation, and we've been created to be in relationship with God and share an abundant life with Him. Week 2, captured. If God created everything good, then why is everything so obviously messed up? Why is there evil? Why do you do evil things? Why do I do evil things? Why do bad things happen in the world? And who is the real enemy behind it all? Week 3, rescued. If the world is so messed up, then what, if anything, has God done about it? How has God rescued you and me from sin and death? And then week 4, response. If God has really rescued me and you, then how am I going to respond, and how are you going to respond to that? For today, what is basic? Today we're celebrating a king. We need to know who's king, who is the foundation of our life. For much of our modern Christianity, Jesus is at best a life coach or a consultant, and at worst, he's a customer service representative. And we are the kings and queens who sit on our lofty thrones. But that is not what God intended. Jesus didn't intend to be just a life coach or a consultant or a customer service rep. He is meant to be having an effect on our life as our king. And so if Jesus is our king, sometimes it means I say, you know what, Lord, I don't get it. I don't like it. I'm kind of tired of it. I'm having a really bad day. But I trust that you are in charge of my life and that you will bring good out of this mess that I'm so often in. That's what it means to have Jesus as the king of your life. And when Jesus is the Lord of your life, that's the base, that's the foundation, and everything else builds upon Jesus.